Hello there. Thank you for clicking on this video. Your time is valuable, so we are super grateful that you are giving our little channel a chance. Any feedback is appreciated. Enjoy the story. The War of the World by hgwells, Book 2, Chapter 9, Wreckage. And now comes the strangest thing in my story. Yet perhaps it is not altogether strange. I remember clearly and coldly and vividly all that I did that day, until the time that I stood weeping and praising God upon the summit of Primrose Hill, and then I forgot. Of the next 3 days I know nothing. I have learned since that, so far from my being the first discoverer of the Martians' overthrow, several such wanderers as myself had already discovered this on the previous night. One man, the first, had gone to St. Martin's-le-Grand, and while I sheltered in the cabin's hut, had contrived to telegraph to Paris. Thence the joyful news had flashed all over the world. 1,000 cities, chilled by ghastly apprehension, suddenly flashed into frantic illumination. They knew of it in Dublin, Edinburgh, Manchester, Birmingham, at the time when I stood upon the verge of the pit. Already men, weeping with joy, as I have heard, shouting and staying their work to shake hands and shout, were making up trains to descend upon London. The church bells that had ceased a fortnight since suddenly caught the news until all England was bell-ringing. Motorcycles, being faced, scorched along every country lane, shouting to God, sharing figures of despair and for food. Across Channel, across the Irish Sea, across the Atlantic, corn and bread and meat were tearing to our relief. All the shipping in the world seemed going Londonwards in those days. But of all this I have no memory. I drifted, a demented man. I found myself in a house of kindly people who had found me on the third day, wandering, weeping, and raving through streets of St. John's Wood. They had told me since that I was singing some insane doggerel about the last man left alive, hooray! The last man left alive, hooray! The last man left alive. Troubled as they were with their own affairs, these people, whose names, much as I would like to express my gratitude to them, I may not even give here, nevertheless cumbered themselves with me, sheltered me, and protected me from myself. Apparently, they had learned something of my story from me during the days of my lapse. Very gently, when my mind was assured again, they did break to me what they had learned of the fate of Leatherhead. 2 days after I was imprisoned, it had been destroyed, with every soul in it, by a Martian. He had wept it out of existence, as it seemed, without any provocation, as a boy might crush an ant-hill in mere wantonness of power. I was a lonely man, and they were very kind to me. I was a lonely man and a sad one, and they bore with me. I remained with them 4 days after my recovery. All that time I felt a vague, a growing craving to look one more on whatever remains of the little life that seemed so happy and bright in my past. It was a mere hopeless desire to feast upon my misery. They dissuaded me. They did all they could to divert me from this morbidity. But at last I could resist the impulse no longer, and promising faithfully to return to them, and parting, as I will confess, from these 4-day friends with tears, I went out again into the street that had lately been so dark and strange and empty. They were already busy with returning people. In places even there were shops open, and I saw drinking fountain running water. I remember how mockingly bright the day seemed as I went back on my melancholy pilgrimage to the little house at Woking. how busy the streets and vivid the moving life about me. So many people were abroad everywhere, busy in thousand activities, that it seemed incredible that any great portion of the population could have been slain. But then I noticed how yellow were the skins of the people I met, how shaggy the hair of the men, how large and bright their eyes, and that every other man still wore his dirty rags. Their faces seemed all with one of two expressions, of leaping exhaustion and energy, or a gripping resolution. Save for the expression of the faces, London seemed a city of tramps. The vestries was indiscriminately distributing bread sent us by the French government. The ribs of the few horses showed dismally. Shaggered special constables with white badges stood in the corners of every street. I saw little of the mischief wrought by the Martians until I reached Wellington Street, and there I saw the red weed clambering over the buttress of the Waterloo Bridge. At the corner of the bridge, too, I saw one of the common contrasts of the grotesque time, a sheet of paper floating against the ticket of the red weed, transfixed by the stick that kept it in place. It was the placard of the first newspaper to resume publication, the Daily Mail. I bought a copy for a blackened shilling I found in my pocket. Most of it was blank. By the solitary compositor who did the thing had amused himself by making a grotesque scheme of advertisement stereo on the black page. The matter he printed was emotional. The news organization had not as yet found its way back. I learned nothing fresh except that already in 1 week of examination of the Martian mechanisms had yielded astonishing results. Among other things, the article assured me what I did not believe at the time, that the secret of flying was discovered. At Waterloo, I found 3 trains that were taking people to their homes. The first rush already over. There were few people in the trains, and I was in no mood of casual conversation. I got a compartment to myself and sat with folded arms, looking greyly at the sunlit devastation that followed past the windows. And just outside the terminus, the train jolted over temporary rails, and on either side of the railway, the houses were blackened ruins. To Clapham Junction, the face of London was grimy with powder of the black smoke, and at Clapham Junction, the line had been wrecked again. There were hundreds of out-of-work clerks and shopmen working side by side with the customary navvies, and we were jolted over a hasty relay. All down the line from there, the aspect of the country was gaunt and unfamiliar. Wimbledon particularly had suffered. Walton, by virtue of its unburnt pine wood, seemed at least heard of any place along the line. The Handel, the Mole, every little stream was heaped mass of red weed, in appearance between butcher's meat and pickled cabbage. The Surrey pine wood was too dry, however, for the festoon of the red lumber. Beyond Wimbledon, with sight of the line, in certain nursery grounds, were the heaped mass of earth about 6 cylinders. A number of people were standing about it, and some sappers were busy in the midst of it. Over it slanted a Union Jack, flapping cheerful in the morning breeze. The nursery grounds were everywhere crimson with the weed, a white expanse of livid color cut with purple shades, and very painful to the eyes. One gaze went with infinite relief from the scorched greys and sullen red of the foreground to the blue-green softness of the eastward hills. The line on the London side of Woking Station was still undergoing repair, so I descended by Byfleet Station and took the road to Maybury, past the place where I and the artillerymen had talked to the hussars, and on by the spot where the Martian had appeared to me in the thunderstorm. Here, moved by curiosity, I turned aside to find, among a tangle red fronds, the wrapped and broken dog cart with the whitened bones of the horse scattered and gnawed. For a time I stood regarding these vestiges. Then I returned through the pine tree, neck-high with redweed here and there, to find the landlord of the spotted dog had already found burial, and to come home past the college arms. A man standing at an open cottage door greeted me by name as I passed. I looked at my house with a quick flash of hope that faded immediately. The door had been forced. It was unfastened and was opening slowly as I approached. It slammed again. The curtains of the study fluttered out of the open window from which I and the artilleryman had watched the dawn. No one had closed it since. The smashed bushes were just as I had left them nearly 4 weeks ago. I stumbled into the hall, and the house felt empty. The stair carpet was ruffled and discolored where I had crouched, soaked to the skin from the thunderstorm the night of the catastrophe. Our muddy footsteps, I saw, still went up the stairs. I followed them to my study. I found laying on my writing table still, with the selenite paper weight upon it, the sheet of work I had left on the afternoon of the opening of the cylinder. For a space I stood reading over my abandoned argument. It was a paper on the probable development of moral ideas with the development of the civilization process, and the last sentence was the opening of a prophecy. In about 200 years, I had written, we may expect. The sentence ended abruptly. I remembered my inability to fix my mind that morning. Scarcely a month gone by, and how I had broken off to get my daily chronicle from the newsboy. I remembered how I went down to the garden gate as he came along, and how I had listened his odd story of men from Mars. I came down and went into the dining room. There were the muttons and bread, both far gone in a decay, and a beer bottle overturned, just as I and the artilleryman had left them. My home was desolate. I perceived the folly of the faint hope I have cherished so long, and then a strange thing occurred. "It is no use," said the voice. "The house is deserted. No one has been here these 10 days. Do not stay here, torment yourself. No one escaped but you." I was startled. Had I spoken my thoughts aloud? I turned, and the French window was open behind me. I made a step to it and stood looking out. And there, even as I stood amazed and afraid, were my cousin and my wife. My wife, white and tearless. She gave a faint cry. "I came," she said. "I knew." She put her hand on her throat and swayed. I made a step forward and caught her in my arms. Chapter 10. The Epilogue. I cannot but regret, now that I am concluding my story, how little I am able to contribute to the discussion of many debatable questions, which are still unsettled. In no one respect I shall certainly provoke criticism. My particular province is speculative philosophy. My knowledge of comparative physiology is confined to a book or two. But it seemed to me that Carver's suggestions as to the reason of the rapid death of the Martian as to be regarded almost as a proven conclusion. I have assumed that in the body of my narrative. At any rate, in all the bodies of the Martians that were examined after the war, no bacteria, except those already known as terrestrial species, were found. That they did not bury any of their heads and reckless slaughter there perpetrated point also to an entire ignorance of the petrificative process. But probable as it seems, it is by no means proven conclusion. Neither is the composition of the black smoke known, which Martians used with such a deadly effect, and the generator of the heat ray remains a puzzle. The terrible disasters at the Ealing's and South Kensington laboratory have disinclined analytics for further investigation upon the latter. Spectrum analysis of the black powder points unmaskably to the presence of an unknown element with a brilliant group of 3 lines in the green, and it is possible that it combines with argon to form a compound which acts at once with deadly effect upon some constituent in the blood. But such unproven speculation will scarcely be of interest to the general reader, to whom this story is addressed. None of the brown scum that drifted down the Thames after the destruction of Shepperton was examined at the time, and now none is forthcoming. The results of the anatomical examination of the Martians, so far as the prowling dog had left such an examination possible, I have already given. But everyone is familiar with the magnificent and almost complete specimen in spirit at the Natural History Museum, and the countless drawings that have been made from it, and beyond that, the interest of their physiology and structure is pure scientific. A question of graver and universal interest is the possibility of another attack from the Martians. I do not think that nearly enough attention is being given to this aspect of the matter. At present, the planet Mars is in conjunction, but with every return to opposition, I, for one, anticipate a renewal of their adventure. In any case, we should be prepared. It seems to me that it should be possible to define the position of the gun from which the shots are discharged, to keep a sustained watch upon this part of the planet, and to anticipate the arrival of the next attack. In that case, the cylinder might be destroyed with dynamite or artillery before it was sufficiently cold for the Martians to emerge. Or they might be butchered by means of guns so soon as the screw opened. It seemed to me that they have lost a vast advantage in the failure of their first surprise. Possibly they see it in the same light. Lessing has advanced excellent reasons for supposing that the Martians have actually succeeded in effecting a landing on the planet Venus. 7 months ago, Venus and Mars were aligned with the Sun. That is to say, Mars was in opposition from the point of view of an observer on Venus. Subsequently, a particular luminous and sinuous marking appeared on the unilluminated half of the inner planet, and almost simultaneously a faint dark mark of a similar sinuous character was detected upon a photograph of the Martian disk. One needs to see the drawing of these appearances in order to appreciate fully their remarkable resemblance in character. At any rate, whether we expect another invasion or not, our views of the human future must be greatly modified by these events. We have learned now that we cannot regard this planet as being fenced in and secure abiding place for men. We cannot anticipate the unseen good or evil that may come upon us suddenly out of space. It may be that in the larger design of the universe, this invasion from Mars is not without its ultimate benefit for man. It has robbed us of that serene confidence in the future, which is the most fruitful source of decadence. The gift to humanity's science it has brought are enormous, and it has done much to prove the conception of the commonweal of mankind. It may be that across the immensity of space, the Martians have watched the fate of these pioneers of theirs and learned their lesson, and that on the planet Venus they had found a secure settlement. Be that as it may, for many years yet there will be certainly by no relaxation of the eager scrutiny of the Martian disk, and those fairly dark of the sky, the shooting stars, will bring with them, as they fall, unavoidable apprehension to all sons of men. The broadening of men's views that has resulted can scarcely be exaggerated. Before the cylinder fell, there was general persuasion that through all the deep of space no life existed, beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see further. If the Martian can reach Venus, there is no reason to suppose that the thing is impossible for man. And when the slowly cooling of the sun makes this earth uninhabitable, as at last it must do, it may be that the thread of life that has begun here will have streamed out and caught our sister planet within its toils. Dim and wonderful is the vision I have conjured up in my mind of life spreading slowly from this little seed bed of our solar system throughout the inanimate vastness of sidereal space. But that is a remote dream. It may be, on the other hand, that the destruction of the Martian is only a reprieve. To them, and not to us, perhaps, it is future ordained. I must confess, the stress and danger of the time have left an abandoning sense of doubt and insecurity in my mind. I sit in my study, writing by lamplight, and suddenly I see again the healing valley below set with writing flames, and feel the house behind and about me empty and desolate. I go out into Byfleet Road, and vehicles pass me, a butcher boy in a cart, a cab full of visitors, a workman on a bicycle, children going to school, and suddenly they become vague and unreal, and I hurry again with the artilleryman through the hot, brooding silence. Of a night I see the black powder darkening the silent streets, and the consorted bodies shredded in the layers. They rise upon me tattered and dog-bitten. They gibber and grow fierce, paler, uglier, mad distortion of humanity at last, and I wake cold and wretched in the darkness of the night. I go to London and see the busy multitude in Fleet Street and the Strand, and it comes across my mind that they are but the ghosts of the past haunting the streets that I have seen silent and wrecked, going to and from, phantasmos in a dead city, the mockery of life in a galvanized body. And strange too it is to stand on Primrose Hill, as I did but a day before writing this last chapter, to see the great province of houses, dim and blue through the haze of the smoke and mist, vanishing at last into the vague lower sky, to see the people walking to and from among the flower beds on the hill, to see the sightseers about the Martian machines that stands there still, to hear the tumult of playing children, to recall the time when I saw it all bright and clear-cut, hard and silent under the dawn of the last great day. The strangest of all it is to hold my wife's hand again, and to think that I have counted her, and that she has counted me among the dead. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, and if you like it, please leave a comment. Bye for now.